Mike, today we're talking about episode 2, When Your World Stops, Insights from a Congenital Heart Parent and Advocate. It was with Jen Siran. And what resonated with you in that conversation?
Yeah, well, of course, a lot of things, but I think one of the big ones that stuck out to me right at the beginning was that Jen has written a book about her experience, and in order to write a book, you have to, yeah, there it is, yeah, you have to process something really deeply, and yet she was sort of surprised at the emotional element of the digital storytelling process, right? Like she was feeling everything again as she was going through it after she'd already written a book about it, after she'd been an advocate for so many years for her kids, after she had done all this stuff in the healthcare world, sharing her story. And yet the digital storytelling process was emotional for her. And so, to me, that really stood out because, I think there is something different about digital storytelling. And I'm not entirely sure exactly what it is. I have some ideas though. And one of them, I think, is that digital storytelling is such a co-creative process. That you end up telling a story in a slightly different way than what you would expect because you're using the creative energies of the group, right? And so the stories are slightly different than the ones that we tell ourselves as we're sitting at our desk writing our book,
Mhm.
right? And so that
Mhm.
might be one reason, but I think probably the biggest one is that for the first time, people have to uh, ask themselves, and this is what we do as facilitators. We ask people these questions all the time. What were you feeling in that moment, and what could that feeling look like? Right. And it's that visual representation of an inner emotional experience that helps draw out this emotion that often can just stay under the surface, right? Things that you're not quite aware of until you have to visually represent it in a different way than just by using words to represent that inner emotional experience. So that's something I really loved about it, right? Is that it's such a different process, and it can be emotional, and it can be valuable for people who are like professional storytellers like Jen, have written books and done so many presentations. So anyways, I love that part of it. Another part is you and her were talking about how you watched it in front of a live audience, and how emotional that was. And again, surprising, being as Jen, someone who's done tons of public speaking about her experience. And I did a live screening last night also, and so it just really resonated with me because, man, I'd watched all these stories many times. I help people make them, and yet I'm watching them up on the big screen, and I was feeling emotional as I was watching. There were
Mhm.
stories of grief, about loss, and so anyways, I think there's something about that live screening experience where you really pick up on the emotion of the people in the room, and that's what makes those live in-person screenings such a valuable thing to do as facilitators. I know you've hosted a lot of in-person screenings in Canmore, right? And
Yeah.
and there's something different about that than watching them online, right?
Well,
So
and that's the
yeah,
thing, right? When you're online, you can be doing 7 different things. Like, there's times where I have to be making dinner while I'm trying to watch digital stories at the same time. So
yeah.
that in-person screening means that people are in the moment as well.
Yes, that's probably it, right? You are fully present in the moment. Your brain isn't going off thinking about all the other things that you need to
Mhm.
do. And that's what, those live theater, those live performance,
Yeah.
those the in-person film premiere types of experiences, I think, are so valuable. I hope we never lose that.
Yeah.
That collective reflection together on sort of an artistic piece. I mean, it's such a valuable thing. So yeah, and so okay, well, one last thing. I know
Okay.
I've got a lot here, but there's the last one is I love how Jen said that she gets taken more seriously when she uses medical jargon. And over the years, she learned all this jargon, and then she would use the words just so that people would take her seriously,
Mhm.
when she went into the hospital. And man, first of all, that's terrible that is the way that things are. But secondly, I love that it contrasts with what a digital story is, because we encourage people not to use medical jargon in their or in their digital stories, right?
Mhm.
And yet they are viewed at such a deep emotional level, and they can really facilitate these meaningful conversations. They don't need the jargon when you tell a good story. So that's, I think, all the things that were resonating with me, Kristy, in that podcast.
Well, and I just want to say to our audience that Jen Siran talked about wanting to get funding to do her training and become a
Mhm.
common language facilitator. And friends, she did that. She got funding from the Western Canadian
Yeah.
Children's Heart Network. She did the level 1 training this year, created another story from her book, and worked with a volunteer. And she's looking to do more of that. So, congratulations, Jen. We're so happy to have you as part of the
Yeah.
collective. And friends, take a listen. Episode 2, When Your World Stops, Insights from a Congenital Heart Parent and Advocate, is a great episode.